I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safer.
Pistols, prayer, and potluck. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a pro-gun podcast with something a little different. We combine guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and most importantly, God's Word. We talk about the ethical and the moral issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 251. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week. And for those of you who are new to the show, just happen to wander in and are checking us out for the first time, I hope you enjoy what you hear here today, and I hope you'll come back next week for more. Today is the first variety show of 2021. We have a new Ballistic Minute from Sergeant Bill. We've got a new motivation from Mia Anstine and a new Pastoral Pontification from Pastor John Bennett today. But first, I want to thank the awesome men and women who make this show possible, the members of the Reformation Gun Club. Armed Lutheran Radio is listener-funded, and that means that we rely on the monthly contributions and the yearly contributions as well of our members, members of what we call the Reformation Gun Club. And I want to give a special shout out this week to Kurt from Ennis, Montana, John, Kevin from Fairfax, Missouri, Sue from Conover, North Carolina, Robert from Bothell, Washington, and two new members. Actually, I think it's three, Jerry and Billy from Deer Lodge, Montana, and Michael from Janesville, Minnesota. Thank you all so much. Welcome aboard, by the way, to our newest members, and thank you for your support, especially in these crazy economic times with lockdowns and working from home and job losses and bars closed and all that good stuff. Although things are opening back up now that the election's over, just as we predicted. They're opening things back up. Who would have known? Anyway, I digress. Thank you so much for your support for the show. We really do appreciate it. Armed Lutheran Radio is listener-funded, and that means that we don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors. This is really the only kind of ad you're going to hear during the course of the show. It's just a little shout-out to let you know how this happens and to thank all of our contributors. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content, invitations to our monthly online hangouts, access to our cool new website and social media sites, and the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping make all of this possible. So check out all the benefits and all the exclusive content that's available to members, and I hope you will consider joining at armedlutheran.us/gun club, or look for a link in the show notes for this or any of our previous episodes. All right, as I mentioned, this is our first variety show of 2021. For those of you who are new and who have not seen the State of the Show video, we alternate the format of the show from week to week. We have a variety show one week where we have contributions from and tips on hunting and self-defense and competitive shooting and theology and politics. And then the next week, which will be coming in episode 252, we have what we call our Clinging to God and Guns show with myself and Pastor John Bennett. So that will be coming next week. That'll be our first Clinging to God and Guns show of the year. All right, time to turn it over to my awesome cast. Mia Anstine is back with us with another motivation. Sergeant Bill Sylvia, a competitive shooting tip with another one of his Ballistic Minutes, and a pontification from Pastor John Bennett. I will talk to you again next week. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Time now for Mia's Motivations with Mia Anstine.
Hey guys, it's Mia here visiting with you again. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about home defense. I've had a few different friends who have relocated to other states in the past year, and two of them have recently contacted me, like literally in the past week, asking me about home defense. So apparently the place they moved to, they don't feel very secure or safe, and that could be just that they are in a new place and it's unusual, so maybe they're a little more uncomfortable. It also, I'm sure, has a lot to do with the times and the unrest in the country. One thing that I really stressed to both of them is that they need to get training and they need to get practiced. And one of them does have experience with firearms and the other one has extremely little. So I'm kind of going to be speaking in a broad sense here. And if you have taken a lot of training, you might listen up in case you have someone approach you asking about a home defense gun. The first thing is that both of these people right away wanted to know which handgun they should buy. One of them is a single woman and she has no experience with guns. She's shot guns one time, and on that time she shot a shotgun and a handgun. And of course, didn't like the shotgun because that's something that's difficult to get used to because of the length of a barrel and the stance and so forth. And if you don't have proper training with a long gun, then you're going to have difficulties because you've got to get the stance correct to handle the barrel and the motion of shooting one of those. As far as the handgun, again, training is a definite must with the handgun. Something that I caution people of with handguns is that it's so easy to point that gun in the wrong direction. It's so easy to muzzle sweep yourself. I spoke in an episode long ago about a friend who is very experienced with guns that shot his own finger off when he was doing his dry fire practice. So those shorter barrels, they can get you in trouble. However, I carry a handgun almost every day. That's what my go-to concealed carry is, but it's not my go-to home defense gun. I want to talk to you about shotguns now. I suggested a shotgun to both of these friends. The second friend, I told you the first one was a single woman. The second one is a father, and he has, of course, a wife and two young children. His children, one of them is maybe old enough to start learning. She's very mature and responsible, and I think he probably could start teaching her firearms responsibility. But that wasn't the conversation we had right now. What I wanted to talk to him about was his wife learning to shoot this gun and him handling this gun as well. And so what I suggested to him is a shotgun. The thing with a shotgun is shotguns are more forgiving than a handgun or a rifle. And I really didn't discuss an AR rifle or a tactical rifle for home defense in this scenario, in this situation. Both of these people live in a metro area and those bullets are going to travel far. So we have to take that into consideration also when we're looking at a home defense gun. Today, talking about shotguns, I did talk about bullpups in a past episode. You might scroll back and listen to that if you haven't heard it already. But shotguns, something about shotguns is, I just said a projectile from a rifle might go a long way in a metro area. Don't discount the range of a shotgun. When I told the one male friend of mine about a shotgun, he kind of wasn't interested in that because he's like, oh, well, shotguns, I shoot doves with those or I shoot birds with those. The thing is, I can shoot a turkey, which is a very hardy bird. I can shoot a turkey at 70 yards in its head with my shotgun. So while the pattern of a shotgun may spread, you can get different shot, heavier sizes. You need to look at that knockdown power, the firepower behind the ammunition that you're going to choose with your shotgun. One thing also that I'd like to share with you, if you go to YouTube and look for the Kentucky Patriot, he and I have made friends over the years. I'm not really sure how we connected originally, but he recently, and it's just timely with these two interests that I found that asked me about home defense. He spoke about the difficulty in getting shot shells right now. And he talked about not being able to get buckshot and so forth. And he did a demonstration on using a 2 3/4 inch field load and showing the difference in damage in that versus your typical type of home defense round. So that's something I suggest is head over to YouTube. Again, the name of the channel is called The Kentucky Patriot. And I believe it was the first or second week of January that he published that video, and he set up a scenario shooting through a rib cage and showing you the type of damage that just a field load can do. Consider that. Consider a shotgun. Consider what type of area you live in. I actually have a shotgun. I use it for home defense as well. I use it for home defense against coyotes and other animals, and that's defending my animals that are here at the house at the Funny Farm. If you have questions about training with a shotgun, you can reach out to me directly on social media. Just look for Mia Anstine. I'm out there. Or you can post questions in the Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio group or in the Reformation Gun Club. There are so many people that you can reach out to that can help answer questions. At the very least, we can help you weigh your options and ask the questions you need to ask before you head out to buy a gun, especially with the availability of firearms right now. That's something that you need to look at as well. If you can only get a handgun, again, get some training. One thing with these two people that I'm mentioning today is both of them moved out of their home states, so they can't yet buy a handgun in their new state. So a shotgun or a rifle it is. And I would lean toward the shotgun before I would lean toward the rifle. As far as whether you want a pump action or semi-auto, I would recommend the pump action just because you're going to have less malfunction. And if you get a semi-auto such as the bullpup, you may need to change the buffer block in there. There might be some tuning that you need to do if you can't get a high capacity load to go in that gun. So that's something that I caution you with on a semi-automatic shotgun. In the meantime, I hope you found this a little bit helpful, and I hope that it helps you be prepared in case you have somebody come ask you what gun they should get for home defense. These are questions we need to ask, and we need to be prepared to protect and defend our families and make sure that we're not just brandishing firearms in hopes that somebody will leave. Again, listen to past episodes. We've got a lot of different tips and scenarios and interviews about these things. I hope that you learned a little tidbit today, and I look forward to visiting with you next time. Talk to you then. Bye, guys.
You can read more from Mia, watch her YouTube videos, or check out her podcast, Mac Outdoors with Mia and Leah, at miaanstine.com. Time now for another Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill Sylvia.
Hey everybody, I'm Sergeant Bill, and this is your Ballistic Minute. Today I want to talk to you about planning and preparation for your 2021 shooting season. Okay, now any planning for the 2021 season for shooting matches and such, whether it be IDPA or USPSA or 3-gun or whatever you may like to shoot, is going to come down to this. We're in an ammo shortage right now, so the manufacturers can't keep up with the demand. So ammo is extremely hard to come by. Reloading components are extremely hard to come by. Everybody knows this, so you have to plan based according to that. So I'm probably not going to shoot as many major matches or as many club matches as I would like to because of the lack of ammunition and reloading supplies that I have. But just because we're in this ammo shortage doesn't mean we stop training, we stop competing, and stop becoming a better shooter. We just have to plan ahead much more carefully so that we can utilize what we have and our time and our training more efficiently. Okay, in your prep for the next season, you need to reload and or buy ammunition so that you can train, practice, and compete. Now, knowing that you're not going to be able to find ammo or components very easily doesn't mean you don't start looking for them, keep looking for them. It means you have to ration what you have. So you need to figure out what matches are important to you, how much training is more important, and start tuning your training techniques towards low round count and saving your ammo for the stuff that's the most important, which is shooting the matches. Because you can do most of your training in dry fire and go to the range and throw some rounds down range as confirmation that your dry fire training is working. You also need to be able to verify that your recoil management is working, which is hard to train in dry fire. You can still do it. You need to actually think about gripping the gun hard in your dry fire, so it'll be subconscious when it comes to your live fire. But other than that, there's not much you can do in dry fire to train recoil management. So make a list of all the matches you want to shoot. They usually have the minimum round counts. You can always round up for those for extra stages or extra rounds you may have to shoot, and write it all down. Figure out how much ammo you will minimally need to shoot those matches. And then, like, I'm planning on how much training I want to do per week or per month, and, you know, putting an actual number on how many rounds I'm going to allow myself to shoot each time I go to the range. And then how many club matches and how much those usually are. I mean, you're going to have to estimate some of this stuff, but you need to have a set number and ration yourself so that you can continue doing the sport you love and the training that you like. So after we've set out that calendar, we've made our match selections, we know when we'll need to train up for those matches that are upcoming. Now, actually, before all this, you really need to make your gun and gear choices. For me, I based it upon the ammunition that I had. Well, I had 5,000 or 6,000 large pistol primers for 45 ACP and some ammo. So for the first part of the year, I'm going to be shooting single stack in USPSA major and CDP and IDPA matches so that I can use that ammo and it's not just sitting around getting unused and I'm burning up all my 9mm and small pistol primers. Okay, so now you've got your match selections picked out, your gun and gear and division choices done. You need to start reading up and setting up your training, just, you know, figuring out what drills you want to do and how you can utilize the little bit of ammo you have, and learn some new stuff if you can, if that's something you want to do. Ben Steger's supposed to be coming out with a new book that's supposed to put all of his live fire and dry fire training all together, his match mentality, all that stuff into one training book, which may be something when it comes out you want to get. I know I do, just so I'll learn new stuff or reinforce the things I already know. In the off season or preseason, this is when you need to be doing this stuff. And then you need to set some goals. These could be as simple as, I want to move up a class in whatever division you're shooting, or you want to beat some par you have set on a drill, or just something that give you something to shoot for. And these can be very personalized. I also think this is the time you need to do your equipment maintenance. So clean your guns, your gear, your mags, replace any springs or any parts that are worn, or maybe you've got mags that have been running great, but you haven't used them in a few months and they haven't had springs replaced in them in the last 3 or 4 years. Well, now's the time to do that. Don't wait until they start giving you problems. Last but not least, review the previous year. Figure out what worked in your training and what didn't. Did you get stagnant in your dry fire or your live fire? Was something not working for you? Or did something work really well and you want to continue to do that and push those limits? Figure out what was fun. Did you go to any matches that you really, really liked and you want to do those again? Or did you hear about any matches that you really thought sounded really cool and you missed out on it? Maybe you put those in the schedule this year. I mean, we're doing this for fun, so let's have some fun. Now, last but not least, did you meet your goals last year? I had a goal that I wanted to make. I wanted to level up in USPSA production from master to grandmaster, and I didn't quite get there, but I was still working on it, and I think I improved, so continue that goal into this next year, maybe. We'll see. But in all honesty, not all your goals have to be met to feel like you were succeeding in what you were doing. I think you should make lofty goals and really strive for them. You need to make some smaller goals that are something you can actually think you can meet so that you have a sense of accomplishment. But, you know, lofty goal of making grandmaster, that's a hard thing to do. So set your goals, set your season, plan out your ammo, keep searching for that ammo and those components, clean up your equipment, prep for the next year. Let's go have some fun. Let's get out and get shooting. I'm Sergeant Bill. This has been your Ballistic Minute.
Sergeant Bill Sylvia is a veteran of the Dallas Police Force and a masterclass competitive shooter. You can check out his YouTube videos at armedlutheran.us/Sergeant Bill. It's time for Pastoral Pontifications with Pastor John Bennett.
Welcome to another installment of Pastoral Pontifications. This is the pistol packing padre, Pastor John Bennett. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience I had this past week. One morning when I had set out to run some errands in a town that's about 30 miles away, as I got into my car, my check tire pressure light came on. Now, for those of you who live in warmer climates up here in Minnesota, that happens all the time during the winter. As you have the fluctuations in temperature, it's quite common for those sensors to go off. I didn't think much of it at the time, and I ended up driving to town, ran some errands, and as I go to get back in my vehicle, I noticed that the tire was really low. And so I checked it, and it was down to 11 pounds pressure. And I figured, before I drive to the tire shop, which is quite close to where I was, I better just change the tire to be safe. And as I did, I noticed that there was a cut right through the sidewall of the tire. And it looked as if somebody had intentionally slashed my tire. And I have to say that I was angry. There was part of me, my mind began to wonder, who would do such a thing? What kind of person? Because, my tire pressure sensor, it went off while I was leaving from my house. The car's parked right there next to the church. Who would do such a thing? I know it's got to be that guy. He's the kind of guy who would do such a thing. He has that kind of a reputation. Now, after the fact, I realized that, perhaps that wasn't the case. Perhaps this wasn't intentional. I had a few people who had contacted me and said, I had a tire that had damage that looks very much like yours, but I ran over something sharp on the road, and it cut through the tire, and I don't think what happened was intentional. Now, whether or not it was intentional, whether it happened by driving over something on the road, who knows? I can't tell you, and in the long run, it really doesn't matter. But I realized something after the fact, that there's this natural tendency in us to think the worst of others, to automatically assume the worst. We think of those who disagree with us politically, and they've shown a great deal of animosity towards conservatives, towards those who support the Second Amendment and so forth. And our natural inclination is to show them in return the same kind of animosity. But when we do that, do we assume the worst in others? Now, sometimes, let's be honest, when we assume the worst in others, those assumptions are spot on. But at other times, can we really say that we know that person's intentions, the intentions of their heart? Can we honestly say that, we know that person, that it's because they have evil desires, and that's why they are behaving in such a way? I wanted to read what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Now, a lot of people look at those last words and say, but this is impossible, which, yes, it is. But we are made perfect through faith in Christ Jesus, for he gives to us his righteousness. Now, we cannot perfectly love others. It's impossible because we are sinners. It's even more difficult to love our enemies, to love those who hate us, who treat us spitefully, and so forth. But at the same time, we have an obligation as the children of God, as those who have been redeemed by the blood of Christ, to reflect his love in our relationships with others, to reflect his love in our attitude for others, even when those other people may not be having a very peaceful and polite attitude toward us. I think back to what happened on January 6th, and if you've been living under a rock, then perhaps you did not know about the Capitol Hill riots, those demonstrations where a few ended up engaging in violent behavior that sadly led to the death of a number of people. It was, in many ways, an attack on our government, an attack on our country, even though those who may have done these things had good intentions at the start. Their attitudes reflected wickedness, reflected violence, and so forth. And yet we go to the other side of the aisle where we look at the, let's face it, 9 months of riots from Black Lives Matter activists, from members of Antifa, where there are still parts of metropolitan areas throughout our country that are under siege by these violent thugs. And yet they thought they were perfectly justified, that they were righteous, that what they were doing was a moral good. I encourage all of you that as you look at the wickedness of others, whether it is Trump supporters storming the Capitol building and behaving in violent ways, or whether it is supporters of Black Lives Matter and Antifa behaving in violent ways, that we use these examples as a time of self-reflection. May our words, may our attitudes, may our actions be a reflection of the love of Christ in all that we say and do. May our attitudes towards our fellow man, towards those who hate us, may they be an attitude of pity. May they be an attitude of compassion and love. For think about it, those who are filled with hatred, are they truly at peace in their lives? We're entering into a time in our nation's history that, quite frankly, we can say is unlike any other time that we've seen before. Our nation seems more divided now than perhaps it even was during the time of the Civil War. Right now, it seems as if we are going through a non-violent civil war of sorts, even though there has been no violence, so to speak. There hasn't been the kind of organized warfare that often is accompanied by civil wars, but it seems to be a civil war nonetheless, a civil war of ideas, a civil war of policies. It's getting so much harder to love our enemies, to pray for those who persecute us. But now more than ever, that's the kind of love that we need to have. The question is then, how should that love manifest itself? Well, certainly it could manifest itself by prayer. Praying for those who serve elected office. Praying for those who have been appointed to high positions, such as our judges. Pray for them that regardless of their faith, regardless of their political ideology, that our Father in heaven would still use them to accomplish His will, to accomplish the good of our nation. I encourage you also to pray for those who harbor hatred in their heart, regardless of their political ideology, whether it is those who acted out of hatred when they stormed the Capitol building, or those who in hatred have burned down businesses and so forth. That we don't fall into the same trap of harboring hatred in our hearts towards them, but rather that we have compassion for them and love them as Christ has loved us and given Himself for us. Well, that's all that I have for this time. I didn't plan on getting into anything that was too terribly deep. It's been a busy week for me, and Lord willing, 2021 will be a better year than 2020. We can only hope. I wish you all Christ's blessings in the new year, and we'll talk to you next time.
John Bennett is the pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church in Willow Creek, Minnesota. For more information, visit stjohnswillowcreek.org. For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.